All right, with us right now, we've got Brenda Barwick. And Brenda, you are the founder, president, and CEO of Jones PR. Certainly one of the biggies, I'd say, in the whole public relations agency world. You have built up such a profound place with all public relations. So that's me kind of sucking up to you a little bit and just admiring your success. And just, as we get going, just so people understand, Jones PR is, you do work with Verizon, Uber, let's see, Dunkin Donuts. Am I naming a few that maybe folks might know? I'm sure you have quite a few others that would be fairly recognizable as well.
Yes, we work with restaurants that are in 7 states. There's 85 restaurants in 7 states, so it's not national, but they're certainly well-known restaurants throughout the Southwest. And we've worked with a number of other brands as well. We've also worked with Sprint, and in addition to Verizon, and Dunkin Donuts is a great brand, and they're flourishing here. And we've worked with them. Yes. And they have great coffee.
Yeah, they do.
I have to put a plug in for their coffee.
Yeah. Well, hopefully by being their PR agency, they give you get like a secret super discount that allows you to stroll in and get at least 10% off Dunkin Donuts coffee, I would hope.
Coffee, and we have some great donuts. We love donuts around here.
Yeah, no doubt. So you're based in Oklahoma City, but that's not where you were working, say the late 80s. In the late 80s, you were working for a certain president. Would you kind of maybe share a little bit about your background?
Yes, I had the great fortune of working for President Ronald Reagan during his campaign in 1980. And fortunately, the candidate I was working for won. And then I found myself in the White House and worked for him for another 8 years. Wow. And it was a real privilege to have an opportunity to work with the great communicator.
Yeah. So I would imagine you learned a few things in your time.
Yes, I learned background visuals are very important to communicating your message.
What is that? Explain that a little bit more.
Well, President Reagan really became known for communicating his message by, being surrounded by the right assets to communicate a message. And he was one of the first ones to start utilizing great Americans to tell his story, like at the State of the Union address each year. And he also, another way he was very effective in that was going out and speaking across the country. And when he went to local markets, one of the areas where I specifically helped with is, say, if he was coming to Charlotte, North Carolina, we would identify people from Charlotte, North Carolina who were serving in his administration. And we would, he would include in his speech 3 or 4 aspects of how that person is helping reshape America, helping cut regulations, helping improve lives for Americans. And so he would always incorporate local heroes when he spoke across the country. And that was a way of really connecting with the people, and thus he becomes the great communicator.
Recently we just had a State of the Union, and of course, President Trump highlighted many people in the gallery. If I'm not mistaken, it was Reagan who really made that a thing.
Yes, he did. It was President Reagan who started that, and he usually had 2 or 3 who he would highlight to help communicate the message and the agenda that he was setting forth for the country.
Yeah. So from working in the White House, you then worked with the American Embassy to Switzerland. And and what work did you do there?
So at the end of President Reagan's administration, I had the good fortune of he asked if I would be interested in going to work at the U.S. State Department because there was an opening at the American Embassy in Switzerland. So of course I said yes, and I served there for almost 2 years. And we had done something that no one had ever done before, and it really was similar to what President Reagan had done, is Typically the American ambassador stays in Bern or Geneva or Zurich, but an American ambassador had never gone out to and visited the people in the other 26 cantons of Switzerland. So we scheduled speaking engagements for the U.S. ambassador to go visit colleges and what we would call like Rotary groups across the country of Switzerland. And it turned into a bigger deal than we expected, because in many instances, it was the first time in Switzerland's history that a U.S. ambassador had ever come to that town or that village. And it always ended up being big front page story in the local newspaper. The town council would usually invite him for lunch, and it turned into a big, town event. So it was highly celebrated. So really, we took the President Ronald Reagan message of him speaking across the country. We did that in Switzerland with the U.S. ambassador, and it turned into a big public relations good for America, because it enabled the ambassador to tell about America's stories, about free enterprise and those type of policies and democracy and democratic principles across Switzerland.
And then, of course, you then go into the private sector and you kind of rise through the ranks in communications, public relations.
Yes, I actually had a little transition. So after my term at the U.S. State Department, I actually continued there through President George W. Bush. President George H.W. Bush, 41, we call him, right, and until 1993. And so when President Bush lost the election in 1992, I returned to my home state, Oklahoma, and actually continued in the international area and worked with the 5th largest international relief organization called Feed the Children. And they help provide food and disaster relief to countries all around the world. And after a couple of years, and I set up an internal public relations office for them. And then I had the great opportunity to go into the agency side, and I've had Jones PR now for 19 years.
Yeah,
and
congratulations.
Next year will be our 20th year. So.
Amazing. So how do you how do you make the decision to say, I'm going to start my own public relations firm?
Well, it is a tough decision. I thought about it for a while, and it was a dream that I'd had. So I wanted to be on my own and live the American dream and have my own destiny. Yeah. And so I, started Jones PR in 2001, and it was just myself at a kitchen table.
Wow.
And started making phone calls.
Why did you choose the name Jones?
Well, that is my maiden name.
Oh, okay.
At the time, I was not married. And I had the company for about 9 years when I did get married, and I had a lot of brand equity in the name of Jones. So
yeah.
I the name Jones.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how do you go from the kitchen table then to Dunkin Donuts and Verizon and Sprint and I recognize that would be a 19-year story to fully tell it, but obviously you're doing something that maybe other folks in the industry aren't doing quite as well. And what would you say is your superpower that's allowed you to attract such high profile clients?
I would say our secret sauce is having great talent. And I've always believed that you can have excellent counsel and we can run great campaigns, and geography is not a barrier. You do not have to have a Madison Avenue address or you don't have to have a K Street address. And just because I'm no longer in Washington, D.C. does not mean that my intelligence has decreased. I can still implement and execute excellent campaigns nationwide. Yeah. And I've brought on a team during the last 19 years of wonderful, excellent public relations professionals who are very seasoned, very talented, and they also can compete with any agency, regardless of their address. And we have proven that in many ways. In just the past few years, we've we have won several national public relations awards, and we were most proud of in 2018 that we won the most prestigious global award. It's called the Gold Lion Award, that's given at the Cannes International Festival of Creativity in France.
Hmm.
And there were over 33,000 entries from 90 countries for only 26 categories.
Mhm.
And we won the outdoor campaign category, and we won the Gold Lion Award. So that was the top award for that. So to me, that is proof that regardless of where you're located, you can develop and execute excellent campaigns
Yeah.
nationwide and regardless of your address.
So you talk about acquiring really great talent. So
Yeah.
when you're early stage in this,
Right.
how do you make those investments? Because that can feel scary when you're saying, well, look, I could hire someone at, $12 an hour, but instead, I'm going to make a risk and bring in this person. How are you able to manage that?
It is a risk. And I had a consultant tell me a few years ago that you need to hire the best and bring them in before you're overwhelmed with new business. And then you're trying to just hire the next person off the street.
Right.
So I have been very deliberative in who we hire. And most of the people have worked in Washington, D.C. or in other markets, and they've come back to Oklahoma. And that's oftentimes what we find here, is that people have had very successful careers, either LA, New York, Washington, Dallas, other markets. They left college, they want to go to the big cities. They've done that, and then when they start to settle down, or they get married, or they start to have a family,
Mm-hmm.
they want roots. They want to put roots in an area similar to how they were brought up, and so they oftentimes find their way back to Oklahoma, and I snatch them up as fast as I can.
So in the world of public relations, why is talent so critical to campaigns?
Well, talent is very critical to campaigns because, can I start over? Sorry.
No, yeah. So again, why top talent? Why is that important when you're making? Because a lot of times, it's ideas, it's connections, it's relationships, it's experience. So I've done this before. Here's what we've experienced. So if a client says, "Well, listen, we are looking at hiring a PR firm, and we're going to go with this cheap PR firm. They're newbies, but the price is right, so we're going to go." They're going to have a completely different experience than someone's that's been in the space for a while.
Mm-hmm. Well, the talent, like I said, that we've attracted, they have experience from all over the country, but they have chosen to the quality of life they want here in Oklahoma City. And so, and just because they have left California or New York or DC, and they're still just as smart as if they were on K Street or Madison Avenue. Just because they're in downtown Oklahoma City does not make them any less smart.
My curiosity is, why is that? What difference does that make to a campaign for a client?
Well, where it makes a difference is we really have our pulse on America. And many campaigns that may come out of the larger cities, especially if they're regional or national campaigns, are limited in how to connect with markets, because we've done campaigns in Little Rock, Arkansas, Kansas City, Denver, Colorado, New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, in cities in Texas. And every market is uniquely different. And if someone thinks that they can implement just a one size fits all blanket type campaign across the country and is going to connect with the local culture, the local activities and interests of the people, they're wrong. And that is where we excel, because we customize our campaigns to the local markets.
Right.
That comes with living and working in the middle of the country where we do have our pulse on America, we understand that the markets are different. Even just in Oklahoma, Oklahoma City is very different in Tulsa, and you cannot necessarily always run the same campaign in Oklahoma City that you can in Tulsa. And even the same in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's very different. And we've run campaigns in Wichita, Kansas, and Kansas City that are very different, although they're in the same state. And so that's what makes us really unique. And for people who are looking at campaigns, they really need to think about how is the local culture different, and how do you really connect with the people? Language is different. Different. Some words have different meanings or connotations, and you have different interest groups and cultural activities, and that's where you really need to connect with the people.
You know, there is certainly that argument that some people will make in terms of, well, those politicians or those elites on Madison Avenue or K Street or wherever it might be, like they're just completely out of touch with regular Americans. And I think that's kind of what I hear you saying.
Yeah, we've actually proven that with a couple of, one of our clients was a national client, and they had one had used a New York agency, and they were not getting any traction because they really did not know how to communicate in the language at the local market level. And then another former client had used a Washington, D.C. agency. And for 7 years, again, they had gotten no traction on their message and was not moving the needle. And so they hired us, and we started working on their issues in local markets from California to New York, and connecting with the people, and it did move the needle. Their donations increased. It was a nonprofit. Their donations increased about 80%. Participation in their big annual walk increased by about 100%. So we moved the needle.
Wow. So when we talk about the clients that you typically work with and the outcome that they are after, this goes far beyond just media placements. What are some of the action items or some of the outcomes that a client would come to Jones PR for?
Right. Well, public relations is really well positioned in today to lead communications, because public relations has always been about building relationships. And so in today's society, people want brands to connect with the community. So that's where we help. People want the brands to, give back to the community. They also want the brands to be authentic. And in one way, you're seeing, you don't see as many celebrities selling products that you used to a few years ago, because that speaks to the authenticity. And so we do a lot of community relations and identifying the right community groups that truly connects with that brand and their audiences. Now, in advertising, we do that as well, but for us, that's a tool in our toolkit. And how we use advertising is building a relationship with our clients, with their audiences. And so some of our advertisements may have a call to action to get involved with either the cause or help support that. It may be a consumer brand, help that brand, help the community. So that's how we use advertising. We do a lot of creative services, so we visualize as much of our communications as we can. And that's really important in the digital and social media. A few years ago, a photo was fine, but now you really need video. If you want to get a lot of clicks and you want to communicate your message, if you can include a video, your likes and followers and your engagement will increase substantially.
And that's my next question is, how has Jones evolved? And so my observation is I see a lot of PR professionals and firms not really moving quickly enough. And I think as a result, they just don't, I would say at the risk of saying they're resting on their laurels, but it kind of feels like that. And when you hear some of these bad outcomes, it
Right.
really hurts my heart, because I know that those clients are, they have the best intentions. And
Right.
when it's just not successful, that's very unfortunate.
Right. Well, in the last few years, our industry has changed more than anything, more than probably since World War II, because with
Right.
social and digital media, and that's where public relations really should be leading, because social and digital media is about relationship and authenticity, and that's why the public relations industry should be leading the whole communications and marketing aspects in this day and age, and we the social and digital media, if you're a public relations agency, that is probably your predominant area where you're working with your clients today. 10 years ago, it would have been media relations, but we have certainly seen the scale tip on that just in the last 5 years.
Do you ever find yourself suggesting a level of authenticity that a client may not be comfortable with?
Yes, we do, and we usually have to work with them. We usually provide them research to
Yeah.
prove our point. And I would say every single time that they do come around, once they see their research, and in research, we'll do surveys, we'll do focus groups, we'll do one-on-one interviews with leaders or influencers in the audience that they're trying to connect with. And so, yes, sometimes we have to talk them into an area that they have not,
Yeah.
either uncomfortable or a new area for them, because they also have to realize that communications is changing. And just going back to social and digital media, you've got to reach your audience wherever they are, and that's why our motto is "Be heard anywhere." And anywhere means your audience with the right communications channel with the right message.
Yeah, terrific. Well, Brenda, this has been a real delight. Again, Brenda Barwick, you are the founder, the CEO, the president of Jones PR. So who would be, kind of someone that, or someone who's listening to this conversation? Again, most people, I'd say listeners, are kind of at that second stage of business. And
Right.
so the tendency might be, well, gosh, Jones PR serves Verizon. I'm not Verizon level. Do you still serve clients at those other levels?
Yes, we serve clients at every level. We have a startup that we just signed on last week, and they're trying to raise their awareness in the aerospace industry.
Great.
And not only in this area, but also in Washington, D.C. So we're working with them to raise their awareness, and it's a technology company.
Yeah.
And so yes, we work with startups, and we also work with large nonprofits too that have a national scope. Oftentimes the national nonprofits will provide messaging to the local nonprofits, so that's why we target the national nonprofits.
Yeah. Well, Brenda, I want to thank you so much for your time. Again, Jones PR is found on the web at jones.pr. Good domain name. Thank you so much, Brenda, for joining us.
Josh, I appreciate it.